You know, something seems very strange about my Friday the 26th mask. Greetings, friends! I am DJ, and in this video we'll be turning this black hockey mask into this Friday the 13th, A New Beginning Roy mask. While Friday the 13th, A New Beginning was the third film to feature Jason in his iconic hockey mask, it was the first film to not use the exact same hockey masks first used in Part 3. What they did was take the Part 4 hero mask, aka the Part 3 stunt mask, and they used it as a basis for a brand new mold from which they would pull new masks. So here we have a Part 5 Roy blank, and on the Fear City Creation website, the Part 5 hockey mask kit comes with a clear blank, like the Part 3, Part 4, Part 6, and I think one or two of the other ones, maybe. But in my own research, I found out that the blank for Part 5 was most likely black and not clear. Luckily for me, Fear City Creation does offer blanks of black, white, or clear, both drilled and undrilled. So instead of getting the hockey mask kit for Part 5, I simply got the individual pieces for it. So first we start by sanding it down to prep it for the layers of paint that it's going to take. We start with 180 grit sandpaper. This will be used to dull down any edges from where the holes were drilled, just to shave off any loose bits or pointed spots. After that, we go over the entire surface of the mask with 220 grit sandpaper to make sure the surface is rough enough to take all of the spray paint. After that, we'll be going over the entire mask yet again, but this time with 320 grit sandpaper to even out any imperfections made by the 220 grit sandpaper. And after sanding, we're just going to rinse this guy off in some hot water to get rid of all of that sanded down plastics. Alright, now that we have this sanded and cleaned, it's time for our base coat. Now you would be thinking we're going to use a standard off-white base coat. However, to think that would be stupid, because why would you paint a white mask white when you can instead paint it blue? Here I have Satin Bluebird. Now in the film, as the mask takes more damage, what appears to be blue paint starts showing up on it around the edges. Now I have seen other people basically go about this with two methods to get the blue paint appearance on this. The first is they will paint the whole thing white and then add dabs of blue paint over top of it. Or they will start with a blue base coat and then put another base coat of white over top of that. And that is the method that I will be using for this. So how this is going to work, I am going to spray down the entire front of the mask with the Satin Bluebird. I'm then going to lightly sand it with my 220 and 320 sandpaper, and then I'm going to hit it yet again with the Satin Bluebird. After which I'm not going to sand it again. Instead, what I'm going to do is mark off several points at the top and bottom with painter's tape. After that is when we put the white coats over top, so that when I peel the painter's tape off of the mask, it'll look like the white paint has chipped, showing the blue base coat of the mask underneath. Alright, now that we have all of our layers on, I'm just going to go over it one more time with just the 320. And this I was doing just to add a tiny bit of surface texture so it's not completely smooth. It's now for the white hockey mask to turn various shades of tan and brown. But before I start that, there is something else that I need to address about this mask, and that is what some people call the phantom chevron. In several shots of the film and behind the scenes and promotional photos, you could see on the forehead what appears to be a triangular chevron, only slightly visible. And this is a point of contention a bit. Some people add the chevron into the mask, some people keep it omitted. Personally, I believe that it doesn't exist and it's simply the lighting in the film alongside the dirt that has been added to the mask itself. But the phantom chevron is a noted point for this mask, so what I'm going to do is, before I even think about taking off the painter's tape on the top and bottom of the mask, I'm actually going to add even more and create just a false chevron on the forehead that will stay there as I start doing the weathering with acrylics, and then pull off partway through, so it appears that there is an area on the forehead where there might have been a chevron to temporarily take up space to make a negative area in the mask. So in my limited research for the mask, I found that the makeup artists weathered the mask by just applying layers and layers of acrylic paints with a sea sponge. Specifically, the paints used were burnt umber and burnt sienna. And after I found that out, what I did was experiment with several shades of paints mixed together. Up here I have burnt umber and Naples yellow. Down here is pewter gray and brown oxide. Up here is nutmeg brown and bright yellow. And then down here and through the middle is burnt umber and bright yellow. And how I think I'm going to do this is I will use the nutmeg brown and bright yellow to do some weathering over the entire mask, and then highlight some areas with the pewter gray and brown oxide. To do this, I will be using my sponge brush, going over the entire mask with a single layer and dabbing off the paint as I go with just a paper towel. And then at the very end, before the final layering, that is when I will take off all of these painter's tape up top and at the bottom, while taking off this false chevron after the very first layer. Okay, so real quick, even before doing that, I actually switched out the chevron that I put on here for a larger, more exaggerated one. And I think it would work a lot better for what I'm going for here. With the ghost chevron, the idea is that the mask that they used as a base mask still had a chevron present on the forehead, and when the new mold was made, there was a slight mark on the blanks that showed this chevron from the original mask. Yeah, now that is what we're going for here. However, it seems like the mask that they used was the Part 4 hero mask, and if it was, then there wouldn't be a full triangular chevron on the forehead. There would only be the partial chevron on the side of the forehead. Alright, here is our first layer. That being said, let's get this false chevron off. Now, the only alternative that it could have been was the mystery mask, which had a full triangular chevron on the forehead, but I can't really recall if that already had the X mark in it prior to Part 5, or if that was put in there during production. Now, that is a hell of a look. Looks like the outline of the original chevron that I put on here. Well, hopefully that'll be no problem as I continue to add some more weathering to this. Okay, for the second layer, what I'm going to do is soak my sponge in some water beforehand so that each layer I put on will be much lighter than the first. Oh yeah, that's much better. Still visible, but starting to hide away a little bit. So for layer 3, I'm going to be mixing it up a bit. This time I'll be mixing pewter gray with brown oxide. This creates a darker, muddy looking color. This I will do a light wash over the whole thing. Now before I put on what may or may not be the final layer, I'm going to put on the chevrons, because in the film the chevrons also had a layer of dirt over them. Okay, so now a small detail about the mask here is that on the left chevron, the bottom corner is actually torn off with a small, I guess, cut into it just above that. So what I'm going to do here is line that up and just cut off a small corner. And then above that, create just a little cut that goes slightly into it. And luckily for me, these are misaligned in the film. And as you can see, I just misaligned them myself completely by accident. Okay, and then I will just peel up this corner here if I can. Yeah. And there is the smallest important detail. And now we're just going to add one final layer over the whole thing before peeling off this painter's tape and maybe adding a little bit more up top. Now let me see if I can take the rest of this painter's tape off without destroying the blue paint underneath them. Okay, and with that done, we will just add a teensy bit more just to muddle up that blue. So now all I need to do is just put on a clear coat of my polyurethane so nothing gets chipped off that shouldn't be chipped off. And then I will attach these straps for this. Great thing about these straps that Fierce City Creation has is that they're actually just screws that you can just put together. They don't require any rivet tool. So, small detail that I just noticed while editing this. This chipped area right here should actually be lower than where I put it. It doesn't really matter, but it's just something that I noticed. And here is our finished Part 5 Roy Burns hockey mask. If you like this video, leave a like down below, and leave a comment on your thoughts and opinions on this hockey mask. If you'd like to see more of my videos, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on all future content. My current goal is to hit 600 subscribers by the end of this year. I have been DJ. Farewell, friends.